Hi everyone, I hope you had a great weekend. Last week we finished off with parts of parabola, and I wanted to show you how to do examples where you had to actually write the equation. So what you're going to be asked to do is go back to Delta Math, and you're going to be given information, and based on that information you're going to have to figure out how to write the equation. And the equation is going to look like either one of these forms. Notice how on each form there's only one side that has a squared. So here's my squared here. Here's my squared there. On the side that does not have a squared, there's always a 4p in front of it. Also, x and h are always with each other, and y and k are always with each other. So those are some major features of the formulas. So when you're looking at this, you're going to be given information. You're going to have to determine, based on which way it's pointing, which equation you're going to use. So I just want to reiterate what I talked to you guys in the notes last week, is that because this equation has the x being squared, that means, well, we know what an x squared looks like. We've been using that for many years. X squared can either be concave up, or it could be concave down. Versus the other equation, this one now has the y squared. Well, that means it's got to be the other way. And the only other way a parabola can be drawn is either facing to the left or facing to the right. So based on the information that they give us, we're going to have to take that information and then determine which equation would be best fitted and then fill in the information. Okay, so, and just to figure out which way it's turning, that's where the p-value is going to be coming in. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a second. So, over here on the computer, I have an example. And what they're asking us to do is they're asking us to take this picture that has a parabola that has the focus of a -2, 8, and the directrix of x equals -6, focus and directrix, and they want you to write the equation of the parabola in any form. So we're going to focus on the forms that we just were learning. So look at this particular one. This is similar to the problems that we had last week. First thing is you have to figure out where the vertex would be. And the vertex, if you remember, is always in between the focus and the directrix. So if I just look right here, my vertex is going to be about right here. So that's going to be -4, 8 is going to be what my vertex is going to be. So if I'm going to write that down in 1 second. And one other thing that we're going to need is we know that we're going to have the vertexes here at -4, 8. And in order for this focus to be inside, the vertex has to be pointing to the right. So since the vertex is pointing to the right, if we remember the equations, which one is it going to be, x squared or y squared? Well, it's pointing to the right, so that means it's going to be the y squared. So that means when I start doing my work right here, I know it's going to be y minus k squared equals 4p x minus h. Just based on the fact that, remember, if I come back over here to the graph, my vertex would have to be in the middle. The focus is always inside the parabola, so this one would be pointing to the right. So remember, we said that the vertex is -4, 8, and the other thing we need to know is the p-value. So we know it's pointing to the right, and if my vertex was right here, I would either count 1, 2 boxes to get to the focus, or go back to my vertex, 1, 2 boxes to get to the directrix. So back to the work, we know that our vertex is going to be -4, 8. We know it's actually going to be pointing to the right. So our p-value, think about the x-axis. Numbers that point to the right are positive. So if it points to the right, p is positive. If it points to the left, p is negative. So our p-value was 2. Because remember, if I come back here and this is where my vertex would be, I would have to count 1, 2 boxes to the focus or 1, 2 boxes to the directrix. The p-value is the number of boxes from the vertex to the focus or from the vertex to the directrix. And p is either positive or negative depending on which way it is pointing. So now that you have all this information, now what you just have to do is plug it in. So this is going to be your h value and this is going to be your k value. So it's going to be y minus, according to the formula, your k value. My k value is 8. Close it squared. Go back to the formula. Equals 4 p, my p is a positive 2, times x minus my h value, which my h value is a -4. So notice how there should be a double negative right there. And the last thing I just need you to do is just to clean it up. So we're going to come over here and we're going to write y minus 8 squared equals 4 times 2 is 8, and 2 negatives go to a positive, right? We know that. We know that if we have 2 negatives, it's going to go to a positive. And then what you can do is you can come back over to the computer and then you can type the answer in. So I'm going to have to get my keyboard open, make sure I'm clicked on here to write my answer. I have parentheses, y minus 8, close it, squared. So this is your squared button, equals. So now to get the equals button, it's right over here, equals 8 parentheses x plus 4. And this is what I have written down on the paper. Submit answer. Submit answer. Is that confirmed? Yes, and you're good. All right, let me show you one other type of example. So let me click over here. All right, here's another one. So now this particular one has a horizontal directrix, and your focus is right here. So remember, you need to know where the vertex is, because if you know where the vertex is, then you have to figure out which way it's pointing in order to have the focus inside. The vertex is in between the directrix and the focus. So that means my vertex would be about here. And I could confirm that by saying I would count up 1, 2, 3 to get to my directrix, and I would count down 1, 2, 3 to get my focus. So my vertex is right here at 1, negative 2. So let me write that down for 1 second. So my vertex is 1, negative 2. Also, if my vertex is right here, I know that my focus has to be inside. So now this one's going to be not pointing left or right. It's actually going to be pointing down. So my vertex would be right here, and I know it would have to be concave down, pointing down, in order to have this focus inside. So that means it's going to be the x squared one. If it's pointing up or down, we use the x squared equation. If it's pointing left or right, we use the y squared equation. So because on this one, it's pointing down, we know we're going to be doing x minus h squared equals 4p y minus k. Let me just change to a different color. So we had our vertex was 1, negative 2. We know that it's pointing down, and we also have to find our p-value. So remember what we said over here. Our p-value, if this was my vertex, I would count 1, 2, 3 to get to the directrix, or 1, 2, 3 to get to the focus. So your p-value is 3. But remember, you have to figure out if it's positive or negative, and that's always about the way that it's pointing. If it's pointing down, p is negative, and if it's also pointing left, p is negative. So since it's pointing down, we're going to have to add this negative, okay, because it's pointing down. So now I'm going to just put the information in and clean it up. So we're going to come over here, x minus your h and your k come from your vertex. So your h is a 1, close it squared, equals 4 times your p. Your p is your negative 3, times y minus your k. Your k is negative 2. Then we're just going to clean it up. Don't forget, 2 negatives go to a positive. So my final answer is going to be x minus 1 squared equals 4 times negative 3 is negative 12, and then y plus 2. So now if I come back to the computer, I'm going to click in here. Remember, I can click over here for my keyboard. I'm going to start off with parentheses, x minus 1, close it, squared, equals negative 12, parentheses, y plus 2. And then I'm going to close it. I'm going to submit answer. Yes. And then you're good. Okay. One last thing I just want to reiterate with you is that the p-value. So again, we know if the equation has the x being squared, the only way it could be facing is up or down. I did not write down. Up or down. And that means if it's up, p is positive. If it's down, p is negative. Excuse me. Vice versa, if we have the y being squared, now we know it could be either facing left or right. Think about the x-axis. It also faces left or right, or points left or right. To left, a negative number, so P is negative. And to the right, P is positive. Because if you think about the x-axis, to the right, the x values are positive. So I hope these notes help you do some problems. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me a question in the Talking Points app. I hope you guys are doing well. Again, I'm here if you need anything. Don't forget, if you need an extension, always ask before the due date or I will deduct points. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.